Welcome to another edition of Journey of Hope. Stories of people that have been impacted by the healing ministry of Loma Linda University Medical Center. People from around the world come to Loma Linda. As you know, Loma Linda is one of 125 health science institutions in the country. But there's something very unique about Loma Linda. An undergirding philosophy is to make man whole, mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally. We often hear the expression, that troubles comes in groups of threes, or when it rains, it pours. Our couple today is a couple from Cincinnati, and they've got an interesting story to tell. George and Myrna, it's good to have you here.
Thank you.
And we have people from around the world that are watching. And you, like so many others that have been here, have a journey that you've been on. And for our listening audience, we want to find out really where you began, where you get started, where were you born, and where did you go to school? And I'll start with you, George.
Well, I was born in Cincinnati, Ohio.
And still living in Cincinnati.
And still living in Cincinnati,
okay.
Correct. And most of my family, a couple of my brothers have moved out a little ways, but most of us are all right. 50 miles is the furthest anyone is away from the home place. And I went to high school, LaSalle High School in Cincinnati. And after high school, I went to I did a number of things, but I went to a technical college to learn.
After high school?
After high school. Mm-hmm. Went to a college for electronics. And in that college, I learned a little bit about computers, very little, because computers weren't very prominent at that time. This is back in the 60s. And then I came back home again and got a job in a machine shop doing some machining. I left there and went back to school. I got a night job stocking shelves for a grocery store so that I could go to school during the day. I went to a technical college for computer programming. The computer programming just intrigued me to no end. I mean, I really found what I wanted to do. Love at first sight, if you could say that. And I went from there, went to work for an insurance company operating computers at night. I did that for about 6 months, but I really wanted to do the programming. So a gentleman that was like my second dad, our next door neighbor, had a machine shop, and he knew I had some machining background, and he did contract work for a company that did machining. But they needed someone to program their machine tools. So he got me in touch with them, and I got a job there. And I programmed machine tools for a couple of months and came up with an idea that I wanted to try. I mean, I was just a kid out of school, but I just had an idea that this job could be done by computers instead of the time that took people to do it. That was really the thing that gave me my start. Because I took a 4-day job and turned it into something that could be done in 2 hours by a much less trained person.
Well, it sounds like you've had a desire for computers all along.
Very
I want to
so.
find out from Myrna a little bit, and then we're going to come back to this job that you kind of created. Myrna, where are you from?
Well, I'm from Brookville, Indiana, which is about 30 miles from Cincinnati. And I went to school at a private school, boarding school, my high school years. And as soon as I graduated, July the 6th, I started work. And I worked
right out of school.
Right out of school. And I went, did accounting work. And then I moved to Cincinnati and got a couple jobs, different jobs there. And then when our son was born in 1979, I took off for 12 years. Which was great. And then the school he was at was a private school, and the head of the school asked me one day if I would work in the office. They needed some help, just for that year.
To kind of fill in.
Fill in, and I worked in that office for 13 years, and then I moved over to. It was run by the Society of the Transfiguration, which is Episcopal Sisters, and it's a K-8 school. And I moved from there over to the convent, and I work in the payroll department there.
Oh, do you?
So
Really?
I've been with that department or with that school for 18 years. So.
Well, it sounded like you were in Indiana, then you moved to Cincinnati, and somewhere in there, the two of you got acquainted. And how did that happen?
Well, George employed my cousin, which I didn't know, and my cousin was getting married. And he convinced George to be in the wedding, which he didn't want to do, but he did. And I went to the wedding, and we met that evening.
So he was in the wedding.
He was in the wedding.
As one of the attendants or something.
I just went. It's my cousin's wedding, and there's
thought
like
you better should
300.
go.
There's like 300 people there. It's a huge. We always had big weddings, and I met him that night. I went up and introduced myself to him. He looked kind of nice, so that was
And
when we met.
that's where it all got started.
Yeah.
Oh my.
that's
Well,
it.
now come back and just tell us briefly. You went to this boss and said, "Hey, I've got an idea," and you talked about cutting the job down into just a few hours. What was your idea?
The idea was to make it easier for the programmers. It took a machinist and a programming mind to take the drawings and to program these machine tools to cut the metal. So my idea was to build all the intelligence into the computer so the programmer literally put an XY coordinate and they put a code next to the XY coordinate that says, here's what I want to end up at that spot. It may take 7 tools to get that hole drilled, but all they do is put a code in it and say, make it one of these. In 2 hours' time, they could program something that was taking them 4 days to do.
Oh.
And then the computer could run it and create the tape in less than 2 minutes.
Really?
Yeah, so it was...
So you were a breakthrough success from the very
It
beginning
really,
then.
I mean, the president of the company, yes, within just a couple of years from that time, promoted me to MIS manager over the department. I spent 21 years at that company as MIS manager.
Well, a common theme that came out as I've gotten acquainted with you the last several months is both of you have a strong work ethic.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So things are going fine. You both been continuing to work, and this last year, some things begin to happen. And you know, we say when it rains, it pours. So you, somewhere along the line, discovered that you heard the words, you have cancer. But there were some other things happening in the home about the same time. Tell us, Myrna, some of the other things that were happening.
Well, in December, actually December the 12th, George's father died. And actually that was my dad's birthday, so I can really remember that.
So it was your dad's birthday, and he died
And
on
he
the
died
same
the same day. And my dad's been dead for several years. But then on the 18th of December,
6 days later,
6 days later, I actually got the phone call from the doctor, and he told me that George had cancer.
so it's over the phone.
It's over the phone.
Your husband has cancer.
Yes.
Okay.
So I had to make a decision. Do I tell him, because he's at work, that happened to be one of my days off, and do I call him at work and tell him or not? And since we've been married a long time, we kind of...
Nearly 40 years. You're coming up on almost 40 years.
And so he kind of, you know...
You know him well.
And I thought, I don't want to really tell him there, but he's going to know
Gonna
anyway.
find out.
He's going to find out. He's going to know. So we did. We talked about it. He came home and we discussed it.
You didn't call him on the phone?
I did, and he
Okay.
figured it out. I didn't really tell him,
Didn't come out with it,
but he knew. So we discussed it between ourselves, and Christmas was coming. We
a lot of people coming together?
Yes, we have both families, large groups on both sides. My brother's coming in from Seattle, and we decided we're not going to spoil anybody's vacation or anybody's holiday.
This was prostate cancer that we're
This was
talking
prostate
about.
cancer.
But it's
yes.
cancer.
It's cancer.
Okay.
Yeah, it's cancer. So between us, we decided, well, George, he's really shook up about this, but I'm cooking food and
You're
cleaning
cooking
house and
food and you got other things.
getting everything all ready. And so we went through Christmas.
And didn't tell anybody?
And didn't tell anybody.
Not a single one?
No, we didn't tell anybody. And so Christmas has passed. My mother, in the meantime, had been in a nursing home for quite a while, and she was doing well. And she decided she wanted to come back to our farmhouse where we were born and raised. And because my brother was coming, she wanted to be there. So, okay, she got out and she moved back to the house with them, which was fine. They kept telling us that, you know, she's doing great, not a problem, until they left. And they weren't gone but a couple days, and she has chronic urinary tract infections. And they were gone just a few days, and she got very, very ill. We ended up putting her back in the hospital. In the meantime, here's George, and
still has the cancer.
Still has the cancer.
And nobody knows about it yet.
Nobody's really. I think we told our son.
We had Chris and
We
Jackie
had
come
our
over.
son and daughter-in-law come over, and we told them, but we really hadn't told anybody else. So my mom's ill. She's in the hospital near where we live. So near closest, I'm the closest one. So I'm at the hospital every night. George is still at home. I don't have time to talk to him because I'm working. I'm taking care of my mom. She was very ill.
Poor George has got cancer.
He's got cancer, and he's dealing with the fact of the doctors gave him all these books to read and said, you know, you have all these choices. Read these books and let me know
what you're going to do.
What you're going to do. He didn't like any of them. He would sit there, which is very unusual because he doesn't read usually at night. He falls asleep if he reads. And he would go through these books, and they were very thick. And he was reading, and he didn't like any of this stuff.
He didn't like what he was reading.
He didn't like any of this stuff.
And he knows he's got cancer.
And he knows he's got cancer. And my mom was in the hospital, like, I think 5 days. And then she said that she didn't want to go back to the hometown nursing home. And I'm thinking, okay, I have to find a nursing home now. And they only gave me a day, and I did. I found a nursing home which had, which I thought had assisted living. They told me they did, but it turned out they only had 13 spots, and they didn't tell me that nobody was ever leaving. But so we moved her into a nursing home, which was very close to my house. And in the meantime, George gets a call. Well, first he tells friends. He tells some friends at work. He finally starts telling people. And I told my family. I think he called his mom. He told her, and she passes it on to her family. And
so pretty soon everybody
knows about it. Everybody knows.
Cancer.
So he's told.
And he's still struggling with it.
He's still struggling. I'm not helping him.
You're preoccupied.
I have
work, taking care of your mother, and everything else.
I have everything.
And does he look sick?
No.
He doesn't look sick.
He's doing everything that he normally does. He's not. There's nothing sticking out of him.
He says he's got cancer.
He says he's got cancer, but you know, he's there. He's just the same as he always was. So, thank goodness he told some people at work who have very high up friends.
Connections.
That work. Actually, this gentleman is one of the head heart specialists at Christ Hospital in Cincinnati. And he told him, and he in turn said, let me see what I can find out. He called some people, and before you know it, George was getting calls from men telling him about the proton treatment. And I mean, then he got the book. It was sent by
the Bob Marchini book.
I got your call from Bob Marchini.
And he got a call from Bob Marchini. He actually called him. It was a snowy, snowy day. He was getting in his truck to go work out because he goes every day at noon. And he gets this call from Bob Marchini. And I think he talked to him about a half an hour. George is sitting in his truck. And he said, get this book, read it, call me back, which was wonderful. So another friend.
Well, the doctor, the heart specialist, had the book sent to me, couriered up to me, so I'd have it that weekend to read. That was a Friday.
So you could read it over the weekend.
So I read it over the weekend.
Which I still am not doing anything to help him.
And while I'm reading the book, she's there, though, in the kitchen bustling around, and I'd stop every once in a while and tell her, honey, you know, I don't believe things that sound too good to be true, but this time I really want to believe what this book says, but it is so hard to believe. I feel like I'm reading a science fiction novel.
This is the book by Marchini.
Yes.
I really did.
It's his story and his journey.
His journey. And I said, oh my gosh, I want this to be real so bad. But it's just
So this is a
unbelievable.
couple months now after you've been diagnosed.
No,
Well,
Six
probably a
weeks.
month.
yeah, it was a
Months,
little over.
several weeks.
Yeah,
Okay.
6 weeks or
Now,
so.
tell me when you got the word. Apparently, you got the word from Myrna. She got it from the doctor.
Yes.
And you get it over the phone. When you find out you got cancer, how did this impact you?
I was real. I mean, I'm sure I didn't check my blood pressure, but I know it went up seriously. I was very scared. I was very, very scared. I'd never heard anyone say, "Oh, I've got cancer," and not worry about it. I mean, it just
Cancer, you know, people hear it and they hear it as a death sentence.
absolutely.
And cancer is a diagnosis,
Yep.
not a death sentence.
Right.
Many options, and particularly when we're talking about prostate cancer. But you're
I didn't know
you're
any
on
of
this,
that.
and she's preoccupied with both at work and taking care of her mother, and you're looking healthy and still going down to the gym and working out. And you know the doctor says you got cancer, and you say you got cancer, but you look good to me. But inside, you're kind of all torn up.
Right.
And so you're reading the book, you learn about Loma Linda, you call Bob Marchini, and then it seemed like I got a phone call in there somewhere.
Bob called you and asked you if you would please talk to me, just to kind of help hold my hand to get me into the fold, if you will, which you did. And talking to you, talking to Bob, and then talking to you, I'm like, gee, this sounds like stuff I read in that book. I mean, I'm talking to these two guys, and they have the personality that resonated out of that book as I read it. I said, gee, now I'm talking to living, honest-to-goodness people that are telling me the same kind of things. This is amazing. But I had to contact the hospital to get the paperwork and things started. But in the meantime, I had a couple of people, and an attorney friend of mine, a fellow I've worked with for 18 years. And he calls me up and he says, George, he said, I want to welcome you into the club. And I said, what are you, I don't know what he's talking about. What? I said, wait a minute, you can't. He said, oh yeah, this guy is fit. Well, he tried to swim the English Channel just a couple of years ago. I mean, he's an exercise nut. He works out with, my daughter-in-law is a personal trainer. She trains him, has trained him for 4 years, I guess. Well, she told him about it. So he calls me up and welcomes me into the club, and he says, George, he said, I've got a friend who went through out at Loma Linda the same thing you're saying that you want to do. I'd like to have him call you. I said, yeah, have him call. And this nicest gentleman calls me up. He was
Former
just,
patient here.
Former patient here. He was a good old boy. He says, hey, I'm just an old hillbilly from down in Kentucky, and where he grew up was a long way from anybody. I mean, it was way out in the hills. This guy was so nice. It was
Does he have a little
crazy.
store?
He does.
Oh, okay,
He has
I
a
know
little.
him. I know
Oh,
him.
you know who?
Yes,
he,
I know
okay.
him, yeah.
Just an awesome guy. And he tells me all about it. Well, anyway, I'm going to jump ahead a second. After we got out here and got in place and started things up, my wife, the house that we rented, she's reading the, what do you call it, guest book. And everybody signs when they go. That's where he stayed.
Oh, the very same place.
He's in that book, and I called him up from out here. I said, you're not going to believe where we're at. And he just got the biggest kick out of that. He couldn't believe it. But anyway, I had a couple of people call me. Another gentleman who's a extremely well-known fellow in the area. I would never cross his path. We move in different circles. But he's going to be 80 this year, and he had the proton treatment, not at Loma Linda, at another place. He had the treatment a little over a year ago. And he said, George, I'm doing great. I have no problems. And he'll be 80 this year.
So all of these things were kind of confirming.
Those are help. And this gentleman, I mean, this fella called me back. I know I've talked to him 6 times. He just wanted to see how I'm doing. He's called me out here. Just want to see how you're doing. And this guy is, you know, he's bigger than life. And for him to call me is just crazy. But the brotherhood, as Bob says it in his group, the brotherhood of these men that get together with this problem, it's
now,
unreal.
for the listening audience, when you talk about the brotherhood, it's fellow proton patients. Bob started a support group 10 years ago, and there's over 4,500 people now in all 50 states and 27 different countries, and they call themselves the Brotherhood or the Brotherhood of the Balloon because of the treatment modality. Now, You've been out here. Now, you were able to work it out, apparently. I mean, there was probably a story there.
There is
being
a
able to
story
get
there.
here. So, did you come later? Did you come together?
Actually, we came together. It was, I'm in payroll. It's the end of the year. I have to get everything done. Again, that takes me away. I can't deal
Can't
with
be involved
everything.
with him.
I've got so much to catch up on. I have to get all this done in January, not knowing exactly when we're going to be asked to come. He told me we probably have 3 weeks' notice, which is what we had. And so my mom ended up sick again. She ended up very ill. And then I was dealing with that. And then she was back in the nursing home again. So we just had to drop everything. And we kind of just said, okay, we're going to do this. And my company was very generous. I'm out here on FMLA leave, which is 12 weeks. This is my 11th week. I am fortunate enough to have built up over those 18 years PT time. So I am getting paid.
It all worked out for you while you've
It all
been
worked
out
out. So I keep in contact. I'm not working, but I do call
Sure.
and check with the other girls. They brought someone in to help out for a while. And I keep in contact with them, and I'm planning on going back to work on Tuesday.
Well, it all works together. You know, nobody comes here by accident. Out of the hundreds of thousands of people that are diagnosed with cancer, only a few, relatively speaking, come here to Loma, Lynn. And we don't believe that anybody comes here by accident. Well, what, since you've been out here, what have you been involved in? I mean, besides the treatment, that just takes a little portion of your day.
The treatment is so easy. That's kind of a non-issue. It really is. The scheduling's a little bit, getting in for the treatments, but the treatment itself is a non-issue. The people that you get to meet and a number of the activities that are set up, like Tuesday evening we get together for a potluck.
Patient potluck,
which is phenomenal. Wednesday afternoon, the men have a support group meeting. Wednesday evening, we have phenomenal get-together, camaraderie amongst everyone, and we have a nice guest speaker that comes in.
Support
it's
group,
so educational. I mean, you pick up so much information. It's fantastic. Then Thursday, the next day, the women have a support group in the afternoon. They have a fantastic workout facility that was important to me, and it's just great. It's huge.
So have you been using it then?
I have not missed a day since I got here.
Well, as you know, we say that the treatments take place over in the gantry or the fixed beam line, but healing is a process. And we let the patients know that we expect them to be down there at the Drayson Center 3 to 5 times. And obviously you've been going down. Were you able to get her down there?
Almost every day. She missed a few, but
wonderful.
Almost every day. Yep.
So you've been involved in all the different activities. And,
yes.
And now that you're looking behind you, what difference is having had cancer, what difference is that making to you?
One of the big things, I've been thinking about that, and one of the big things I believe is that I was shown another side to people, to mankind in general. I really was. And I know, I mean, you got people that you love, people that you like, that you associate with and so forth, but here, it's so overwhelming. There are so many people that are there willing to support you, whether it's the techs in the gantry, the doctors, the nurses, the other patients. The other patients are an incredible source of support. And to see that many people, especially with men, because so many men won't talk. That's not their thing.
Their nature.
But here, at least the ones I see at all the get-togethers, and I'm talking, I mean, while I was here, I probably met a couple of hundred men, plus the spouses of most of them. It's different. They are so open and so caring and so, I mean, today being my last day, my gosh, I couldn't hardly get out of anywhere. I mean, it was, whether it was at the gym this morning, at the gantry, it was just amazing. But all the way through this, for 2.5 months, I'm feeling this community, this friendship, this love coming out of people. I want to figure out a way to, I know I won't be able to do it to the extent that Loma Linda does it, but I would love to be able to bring that side out of people.
Take some of that same spirit back.
Take some of that same spirit, because it makes living really neat. I mean,
well, I know, and having talked with you a few months ago when you were just diagnosed, trying to sort things all out, it was kind of overwhelming to you.
It was.
But now that you're looking back on it, has the time gone by slowly or has it gone by quickly?
It has just flown. It has absolutely flown. I can't believe we're sitting, I mean, for me, to sit one place for 2.5 months and not be at work, and not, well, I had a gym, that helped a whole lot. But that's just not me. Ask her. I mean, I can't sit in the house for an hour. If I'm awake, I'm outside working on something. That's just me. But I was able to do it here, and to say there was no stress is an understatement.
Well, you got involved. You're looking back now, and you're going to have an opportunity to go back and share. And I know that all kinds of people are going to come out of the woodwork, so to speak, and let you know that, hey, I've been diagnosed with cancer. I heard you're out there someplace in California. And even though we're celebrating our 20th anniversary this year, over 14,500 patients haven't been treated. Some people are still calling it experimental. And for our listening audience, you know, George and Myrna are another wonderful example of people that have come here to Loma Linda, fearful when they came, being treated for cancer, but came to realize that it was a diagnosis and not a death sentence. Again, for those that are looking on, I'm Lynn Martell with Journey of Hope. And some of you that are watching on even this week have received some sobering news. And I want to tell you that God's got a plan for your life. If you'll open your ears and your eyes, He will open and close doors that you'll be able to discern His will. So until next week, God bless you each one. Give God an opportunity. Thank you so much.